According to the New York Times, simply making incursions so deep into Democratic terrain is a victory for Republicans. Win or lose, they've diverted limited Democratic resources. But Republicans need just 5 seats net to flip the chamber. With the current daunting map, some Democrat strategists worry the party could lose far more, 20 or even 30 seats. Well, I'm going to go that they would win plus 30. I think Republicans do better. I'm going to take the over on this. Right now, the Real Clear Politics polling average suggests that Republicans are going to take 29 seats. I think Republicans win upward of 30. In Oregon, Republicans are in contention to win half the state's soon-to-be 6 congressional seats, up from the 1 seat they now hold. In California, Republicans are competing to represent as many as 5 House seats that Biden carried in 2020 by the relatively comfortable margin of 10 percentage points or more. In New York, Republicans are pursuing 5 more districts carried by Biden, including one held by Representative Sean Patrick Maloney. He's chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Democrats, by the way, are now spending money in that race. They're now acknowledging that that's a vulnerable seat. The question the blue states will answer is how deeply Republicans go into the map or how narrow a majority they might end up with, said Jesse Ferguson, Democratic strategist who works on House races. Of the 46 House races that had seen at least $3 million in outside spending through the past week, 42 of them were carried by Biden in 2020. Okay, that means that Democrats are putting a lot of money into defending very, very blue seats. 11 of the districts most flooded with money are seats Biden carried by 10 percentage points or more. That is a remarkable number of solidly Democratic seats for Republicans to be contesting. In contrast, Democrats have devoted virtually no national money to targeting seats that Trump carried, as in 0. This race is breaking heavily in Republicans' favor. Now, this would be an excellent time, you would imagine, for Donald Trump to go out and take a triumphal lap, right? I mean, Donald Trump, after all, if it turns out that Herschel Walker is able to pull out his race in Georgia, and Dr. Oz is able to pull out his race in Pennsylvania, and Blake Masters is able to pull out his race in Arizona, and J.D. Vance is able to pull out his race in Ohio, you could see Trump trying to take credit for that. Now, the reality is that Trumpy candidates are underperforming Republicans generally, but you could see Trump basically out taking credit. Instead, Donald Trump, I'll never understand the political machinations of the former president of the United States. He was out there yesterday slamming Blake Masters. Blake Masters is in a very competitive race. We had him on a guest on the program last week. Blake Masters is in an extraordinarily competitive race right now with Mark Kelly. The polls have them within margin of error. And he's in the same state as Kari Lake, who's running a very, very competitive race with Katie Hobbs in Arizona. Arizona, you would think, would be a state that if you are the former president and you would like to win in 2024 and you want to run again, you would like for Arizona to be dominated by Republicans, would you not? But Donald Trump is so perpetually obsessed with his own gripes about 2020 that he has now ripping into Blake Masters, who's the biggest Trump backer on the slate of Republican candidates, because in debate with Mark Kelly, Blake Masters didn't lie and say that Trump won the 2020 election. So you have Donald Trump now trying to undermine another Senate. How many Senate seats can the former president of the United States undermine? There are 2 Democratic senators in Georgia, and we've spent probably $4 trillion additional dollars thanks to Donald Trump intervening in the Georgia Senate races after the 2020 election. Now he's intervening to make Blake Masters, who's an ally, lose. I just have a question. If you're looking at Donald Trump for 2024, is this somebody who seems to have the best interests of the conservative movement or the anti-left movement at heart? Or is he devolving into petty squabbling with members of his own party over his own personal complaints about 2020? Like Blake Masters, there is no way for you to declare that Blake Masters is not Trumpy enough. Blake Masters was the Trump candidate. Blake Masters, in his commercials, cites President Trump over and over and over again. The one thing he didn't say in an open debate is that Trump won the 2020 election, because, spoiler alert, Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election. He's not president of the United States. Here's Donald Trump ripping into Blake Masters.
Mr. President, how are you, sir? Doing great.
Because I got a lot of complaints about that. I don't know what you did with the debate, but I heard you did great on the debate, but a bad election answer. You got a lot of support. You got to stay with those people.
Absolutely, we stay with those people.
If you want to get across the line, you got to go stronger in that one thing. That was the one thing you had a lot of complaints about. Look at Kari. Kari's winning with very little money. And if they say, how is your family? She says the election was rigged and stolen. You'll lose if you go soft. You're going to lose that base.
I'm not going soft.
I've never come in to do a rally where the person lost. Not once. I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
No, I'm just sure we're going to beat this guy.
Okay, so I assume Blake Masters' campaign put out this video because they want to show that Trump is backing Masters. Trump on the phone, ripping Masters on speaker, on tape, talking about how don't go soft on the election was stolen. Carrie Lake, she keeps saying the election was stolen and she's winning. Why won't you say the same thing? Why is that the obsessive compulsive disorder nonsense that you're pushing right now? Why? Why? You're so, like, the pettiness, honestly, the pettiness is astonishing. Blake Masters is your guy. You picked him. It's maddening. It's maddening. And again, my chief priority, and the chief priority of every conservative at this point, should be, winning the elections, getting the Democrats out of power, providing obstacles to Joe Biden's asinine and dangerous agenda. And instead, Donald Trump has spent almost no money on these Senate races. He's raised like $100 million. He spent almost no money on these races. Every time he's asked about it, he will find a Republican candidate, apparently, to rip, whether it's Brian Kemp as governor of Georgia, or now apparently, like, on speakerphone, going after Blake Masters. Like, what in the world? This is something that voters should keep in mind as they move forward. I'm not saying that if Trump is the nominee, I won't vote for him. I'm not saying that Trump didn't do many wonderful things as president. I've said all of those things many times before. I'm saying, what is the strategic acumen that leads you to undermine your own Senate candidates on the basis of petty personal grievance? What? See, here's the thing. I like winning. You know what's not winning? Losing. You know what helps you lose? Undermining your own candidates for no reason. Just absurd. Okay. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is doing the clown nose on, clown nose off routine, except with COVID. So you'll remember just a few weeks ago, he did an interview where he was strolling through an auto show. I believe it was with Lester Holt. And he just starts talking about how COVID is over, man. And look around. And then his entire administrator's like, no, Mr. President, you can't say that. You've been using the COVID emergency as the basis for things like student debt relief. Well, apparently, magically, the COVID emergency is back. Now, I don't know about you. Do you feel like it's a COVID emergency right now? Do you feel like you did in March 2020? When the sirens in New York literally never stopped because people were just expiring on a regular basis? Is that what you feel like right now? Because I got to tell you, I don't feel like it's a COVID emergency right now. I also feel like virtually all Americans have either been vaxxed and have vax immunity, or have had COVID and have COVID immunity, or both, right? I was twice vaxxed and I had COVID. I know people who were 4 or 5 times vaxxed and also had COVID. So, like, again, the amount of immunity in the public sphere is very, very high. But Joe Biden is declaring a new COVID emergency. They're never going to let it go. Once the power is centralized in government, they never, ever, ever let it go. Okay, so here is Joe Biden yesterday declaring COVID a global health emergency again.
Some of our friends in Congress say we don't need COVID funding, or they say there's really no reason that the government should be paying for it. I strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. This is a
Stop leaning into the mic.
Emergency. If we really want to put COVID behind us, we have to keep up the fight together.
It's still a global health emergency. Okay, I'm looking at the stats right now. Yesterday in the United States, there were approximately 380 deaths from COVID reported. There are 1,700 deaths a day in the United States from cancer. So, no. I mean, the answer is no. But Joe Biden's going to keep pushing. Because again, once you grab those government reins, you're never letting go. Alrighty, the rest of the show is continuing now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into what Republicans are about to do in the House. The answer is they're going to win a lot of seats. Plus, Joe Biden is doing COVID emergency on, COVID emergency off. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.